Detective Lena Hartman drove down the narrow, cracked road leading into Willow Creek with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. The town lay shrouded in late afternoon fog, the kind that made streetlights glimmer like ghostly lanterns even before nightfall. Lena had chased rumors of a series of disappearances across multiple counties, and each clue pointed to one place, the Sunset Motel, a long-abandoned building that locals spoke of in hushed whispers, as though saying its name aloud could awaken the horrors within. The motel loomed at the edge of the forest, like a carcass left to rot. Its paint had peeled away in thick, curling strips, and the rusted signs swung with a haunting creak in the wind. Windows were either shattered or boarded haphazardly, and the motel's once vibrant neon sign had long since died, leaving only the skeletal outline of its letters. Lena parked her car at the cracked asphalt entrance, noticing footprints in the fine layer of dust that covered the driveway. They were faint, but definitely recent. She grabbed her flashlight, the beam slicing through the encroaching shadows, and approached the front doors. The air was thick with decay and the lingering odor of mold, overlaid with a strange metallic tang that made her stomach churn. Lena paused at the threshold, her instincts screaming that she wasn't just stepping into an abandoned building, she was stepping into someone else's world, one that had been carefully hidden for years. The lobby was a mausoleum of forgotten time. Torn newspapers littered the floor, their headlines yellowed and brittle. An old reception desk leaned precariously to one side, drawers hanging open, spilling receipts and dusty ledgers onto the floor. A half-burned journal lay atop a chair, its remaining pages marked with hasty, jagged handwriting. Lena bent down and read a single entry. "They will come again. I'm waiting." A chill ran down her spine. The words weren't just a note, they were a warning. She swept the flashlight across the lobby, catching glimpses of the motel's past life, a cracked vase on the counter, a child's lost toy under a chair, and a series of bloody handprints smeared on the far wall. Her mind raced. These weren't random remnants of abandonment. They were messages left by someone who didn't want the past forgotten. Lena's gaze fell on the hallways stretching into darkness. The peeling wallpaper warped into grotesque shapes under her flashlight's beam. She started down the nearest corridor, each step crunching on broken glass and debris. Her every movement echoed in the emptiness, the sound amplified as if the building itself were listening. As she passed the rooms, she noticed something strange. The doors, though battered and hanging on rusted hinges, bore marks that seemed recent, scratches at eye level, and in some cases footprints in the dust that hadn't yet settled. Lena crouched beside one doorway, shining her light inside. A chair had been knocked over, its legs splintered. On the floor lay a half-eaten sandwich wrapped in paper yellowed age, but the bread itself smelt fresh. Her pulse quickened. This motel, long thought deserted, was not empty. Someone or something had been here very recently. The first whispers of danger came when Lena heard the faint creak of a door swinging behind her. She spun around, flashlight cutting through the shadows, but the lobby was empty. Only the peeling wallpaper and broken furniture greeted her. She stepped cautiously back toward the hall, telling herself it was the wind, but the sound came again, deliberate and deliberate. Lena's training kicked in. She pulled her small notebook from her coat and jotted down observations. Recent footprints in dust, fresh food in abandoned room, strange cryptic writings in journal, whispers of a local legend, Victor Crane, original owner, vanished decades ago. A soft whispering voice floated from one of the rooms further down the hall. Lena froze. The words were indistinct, almost carried by the wind, but unmistakably human. Her stomach tightened. "Who's there?" she called, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her chest. No answer, only the whispering, soft but persistent, weaving through the rooms as if teasing her, drawing her deeper into the motel's bowels. Lena moved toward the source, flashlight raised like a weapon. Each step felt heavier, the air colder, thicker. She could almost feel eyes watching her in the shadows, tracking her every move. The first room she entered was a former guest suite. A tattered bedspread hung off the mattress, stained and torn. The dresser drawers were open, and she could see clothing scattered on the floor, men's shirts, women's shoes, but each item was coated in a thick layer of dust. Yet in the corner, Lena spotted a small, fresh footprint, barely discernible but unmistakable. Someone had been here within hours, perhaps even minutes. Her crouched to examine it, brushing the dust away carefully. Her heart pounded as the hairs on her neck stood up. A sudden slam of a door echoed through the hallway, making her jump. Her flashlight flickered for a moment before stabilizing. She turned, scanning the darkness, and saw nothing. But the air felt different, charged as though the motel itself had shifted. The sense of foreboding grew stronger as Lena continued through the hallways. She noticed walls with scratches, some deep enough to catch light from her flashlight, forming shapes that almost looked like letters. One she could make out clearly: "Run." Her mind raced. Whoever or whatever was here was aware of her presence. Despite the fear, Lena pressed on, her determination stronger than her unease. She needed evidence. She needed answers. The Sunset Motel had held horrors hidden for decades, and now she was standing at the threshold of a story no one in Willow Creek had dared to tell. As night fully descended, Lena paused in the center of the lobby, flashlight sweeping the shadows one last time. A cold gust of wind seemed to sweep through the broken windows, carrying a faint, almost inaudible laugh. She swallowed hard and whispered to herself, "This is just the beginning." And in that moment, the motel seemed to breathe around her, alive with memories of terror and the promise that its horrors were far from finished. Night had fully claimed the Sunset Motel, and the forest surrounding Willow Creek whispered with the rustle of unseen creatures. Detective Lena Hartman moved carefully through the dim hallways, her flashlight slicing through the darkness like a blade. Every corner seemed alive, shadows stretching unnaturally across walls warped by decades of neglect. She felt the weight of history pressing in on her. The secrets of the motel weren't just hidden, they were waiting. Lena's first stop was the hallway leading to the guest rooms. Each door she passed seemed to hum with a silent story, the peeling paint and broken locks hinting at the lives that had passed through here or ended here. She paused at room 7, where the floorboards groaned under her weight. Inside, the air smelled of dust, mold, and decay, but something else lingered, the faint metallic tang of blood. The room appeared ordinary at first glance: a sagging bed, torn curtains, a dresser with drawers left half open, but Lena noticed the details that didn't belong. Photographs of strangers taped haphazardly to the walls, their faces scratched out with dark ink. A diary lay on the floor, its pages filled with meticulous lists of names and dates, some crossed out, others marked with cryptic symbols. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for it. The last entry read, "They will come for me, but I will always be ready. The game continues." Lena shivered. Whoever had written this was not just dangerous, they were methodical, obsessive, and deeply sadistic. Determined to gather more evidence, Lena ventured deeper into the motel. The hallway seemed to twist and elongate as if the building itself were conspiring against her. Every creak of a floorboard, every distant drip of water sounded amplified, like a warning echoing through the empty corridors. She found herself in a room at the far end of the hallway, its door slightly ajar. The room was almost untouched by time. A child's toy, a small wooden horse, sat in the center of the floor surrounded by layers of dust, but the dust had been disturbed, as if someone had been playing with it recently. Her flashlight revealed fresh scratches along the walls, jagged and deliberate. Lena's pulse quickened. This wasn't just a relic of the past. Someone had returned to this place, perhaps even tonight. Lena pulled out her camera and snapped photos of the room, careful to record every detail. She noticed the faint outline of a trail, tiny footprints leading toward the closet. She crouched down, her breath shallow. The footprints were adult-sized, but light, almost like someone had moved silently on tiptoe. A sudden clang from the lobby made her spin around. Lena's flashlight beam cut through the darkness, landing on the empty hall. Her mind raced. Was it the wind, or had someone or something just moved past her? She gripped her flashlight tighter and pressed forward, following the faint sound of movement. The lobby was empty, yet the sense of being watched was overpowering. Lena scanned the room and noticed a series of strange marks etched into the wall behind the reception desk. They weren't words, at least not in any language she recognized. They were more like a code, a pattern of scratches and dashes. Lena's instincts told her they were significant. Someone had left these deliberately, perhaps as a warning or a taunt. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock, soft, deliberate, coming from the other end of the lobby. She froze, listening. A second knock followed, louder this time, echoing through the emptiness. Lena raised her voice. "Who's there?" No answer, only silence, thick and suffocating. Yet the air seemed to shift, carrying with it a cold, almost sentient presence. Lena felt her skin prickle, her instincts screaming that she was no longer alone. Determined to get answers, Lena left the lobby and headed for the motel's office. The door was locked, but Lena picked the rusted latch with surprising ease. Inside, the room was a shrine to obsession. Maps of the surrounding towns were pinned to the walls, with dates and names scribbled in red ink. Files, ledgers, and photographs were spread across a desk. Each document chronicled a person who had disappeared without a trace, many linked to nearby highways, rest stops, or the motel itself. Lena's heart raced as she pieced together the pattern. The Sunset Motel had not been abandoned in the sense she'd believed. It had been a hub, a lair, a place where the missing had ended up, and some of them, she feared, might still be there. A sudden creak of a floorboard above her snapped her attention upward. She held her flashlight steady, sweeping the ceiling and the cracked rafters. For a moment, she thought she saw a shadow move across the landing, too deliberate to be an accident. Lena's breath hitched. Someone was in the motel, following her, observing her every move. She climbed the stairs carefully, flashlight in front, ears straining. The upper hallway smelled more strongly of decay and something she couldn't name, a faint, sickly sweetness that made her stomach turn. She stopped in front of room 12, where the door was slightly ajar. Inside, she found scraps of clothing, a half-empty bottle of water, and a small carved figure of wood, its face twisted in anguish. Lena realized the horrifying truth. This room had recently been occupied. A sudden slamming door from the far end of the hall made her spin, flashlight trembling. The shadows seemed to flicker and shift, coalescing into shapes that danced just beyond the edge of vision. She whispered to herself, "This place, it's alive." The next hours were a blur of tension and discovery. Lena moved from room to room, finding evidence of both old and recent activity. Torn photographs, ritualistic marks, and personal items hinted at a methodical, long-running operation. Every step felt like a step deeper into a trap. She realized the motel was not just hiding the past, it was actively consuming the present, drawing her in, daring her to uncover its secrets. By the time Lena paused at the end of the hallway, she was exhausted but resolute. The motel's story was becoming clear: a pattern of disappearances, a killer who possibly never left, and a legacy of terror carefully hidden behind boarded walls. She set up a small camera in the hall to record activity and left the room, determined to dig deeper, but as she turned the corner, she caught movement at the far end of the hallway. A figure, fleeting and shadow-like, disappeared into the darkness. Lena's pulse jumped. Whoever or whatever was in the motel had noticed her, and now she realized with a cold certainty the game had begun. As she stood in the silent hallway, the wind moaning through broken windows, Lena whispered under her breath, "I'm not leaving, not until I know the truth." And somewhere in the motel, the shadows seemed to shift in anticipation, as if pleased by her defiance. The horrors of the Sunset Motel were still very much alive, and Detective Lena Hartman was now in their crosshairs. Detective Lena Hartman didn't sleep that night. The Sunset Motel had a way of staying alive in her mind, its shadows stretching into her thoughts, whispering secrets she wasn't sure she was ready to hear. By dawn, the first rays of weak sunlight filtering through broken windows did little to ease the sense of dread that clung to her. She returned to the motel, flashlight in hand, determined to follow the trail of evidence that had haunted her through the night. The hallway was colder than she remembered, the air thick with dust and the faint tang of rust. Lena noticed something she hadn't before: a small, almost invisible seam in the wall behind the reception desk, obscured by peeling wallpaper. Her pulse quickened. Years of experience told her that buildings like this, old, neglected, and full of secrets, often had hidden spaces. She pressed against the seam, and it shifted under her touch. A small section of the wall swung open, revealing a dark staircase leading downward. Lena hesitated, the flashlight beam slicing through the darkness, revealing stone steps slick with moisture and grime. The air smelled of decay and something far more sinister, an iron-like scent that made her stomach twist. She descended slowly, each footstep echoing ominously, the shadows swallowing her whole. At the bottom, she found a hidden basement unlike anything she had imagined. The space was vast, a cavern of horror frozen in time. Broken furniture and discarded luggage littered the floor, but the most chilling sight was the evidence of human life reduced to the macabre. Skeletons, some fully clothed, others stripped bare, lay arranged across the floor as if placed deliberately. Newspapers and letters, yellowed with age, detailed a decades-long pattern of disappearances connected to the motel. Each victim had been chosen with care, meticulously documented, their fates recorded in meticulous handwriting. Lena's stomach churned as she scanned the room. She realized the scope of the crimes. The motel had been a lair for a serial killer who had never left, hiding in plain sight while the town whispered rumors and feared to confront him. The pieces clicked into place: the strange markings, the fresh footprints, the half-eaten food. Victor Crane, the motel's original owner, was not just a memory. He was alive. A sudden movement caught her eye. Across the basement, a shadow shifted, darting behind a pile of debris. Lena froze, every muscle tense. The figure was fast, almost unnervingly silent. Her flashlight illuminated a tall man with cold, calculating eyes watching her. Detective Hartman. The man's voice was low, deliberate, a whisper that seemed to echo in the cavernous space. "I've been expecting you." It was Victor Crane. His presence was immediate, oppressive, and Lena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the basement's damp air. He was gaunt, almost skeletal, with eyes that seemed to see straight through her. Years of hiding hadn't diminished his cunning. If anything, they had honed it. Lena steadied herself, forcing calm into her voice. "I know what you've done. It's over." Victor chuckled softly, the sound echoing off the stone walls. "Over, my dear detective. You're only just beginning to understand. This place, it feeds on those who come here, and now you've become part of it. Panic surged, but Lena pushed it down. She had trained for moments like this, moments when fear threatened to take over. She took a step forward, scanning the basement for anything she could use, anything that would give her an advantage. Her eyes fell on a rusted pipe lying near a stack of crates. Victor moved with unnerving precision, circling her like a predator testing its prey. Lena realized this wasn't just a confrontation, it was a psychological game. Every step, every breath was being measured, every reaction cataloged. Suddenly, Victor lunged, a blur of motion. Lena swung the pipe instinctively, striking him across the shoulder. He stumbled but didn't fall, his grin widening. Not bad, but you'll need more than that. Lena darted toward a narrow corridor she had noticed earlier, using her knowledge of the basement's layout to her advantage. Victor followed, his footsteps silent, yet somehow deafening in the oppressive quiet. She ducked behind a stack of crates, catching her breath, and tried to formulate a plan. The basement seemed almost alive now, every shadow a potential threat, every sound amplified. Lena realized that Victor had designed this space not just to hide, but to manipulate and terrify. He had studied the flow of movement, the panic, the hesitation, and he had perfected it over decades. Her mind raced. She needed evidence, she needed a way to stop him, and she needed to survive. Lena recalled the small cameras she had set up the previous night in the motel's hallways. If she could lure him toward one of them, she could not only document his presence, but also use it to anticipate his movements. Victor appeared around a corner, his eyes glinting in the dim light. "You think you can trap me? That's adorable." He advanced slowly, deliberately, like a shadow slipping closer. Lena stayed low, moving silently toward the camera. She ducked behind another crate, catching her breath, and just as she reached it, Victor's hand shot out, grazing her shoulder. She twisted, narrowly avoiding him, and activated the camera. The red recording light blinked, illuminating her target. Victor hissed, momentarily distracted by the sudden flare of technology. Lena seized the opportunity, grabbing a length of chain from the floor and swinging it with all her strength. It struck Victor across the chest, sending him sprawling back. Lena didn't wait. She ran, ducking through narrow passages, her ears straining for his pursuit. Finally, she emerged into the far corner of the basement, a small, reinforced storage area she had noticed earlier. She barricaded herself inside, breathing hard, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Victor's voice echoed from the other side of the door, calm and taunting. "You can hide all you want, detective, but this place, it knows you. It will show you everything. The horrors, they're only beginning." Lena pressed herself against the wall, chest heaving, mind racing. She had uncovered the truth. Victor Crane was alive, cunning, and more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The basement had been his playground for decades, and now she was trapped in it, a single misstep away from becoming part of his legacy. But she was not defeated. She had cameras, evidence, and most importantly, her resolve. Lena knew that to survive and bring Victor to justice, she had to confront him directly. And when that confrontation came, she would need every ounce of skill, courage, and wit she possessed. As she sat in the darkness, listening to the faint shuffling and whispers of the man who had terrorized generations, Lena whispered to herself, "This ends tonight. One way or another, this ends." And somewhere deeper in the shadows of the Sunset Motel, Victor smiled, already plotting the next move in a game that had lasted far too long. The Sunset Motel was silent in the early hours of the morning, but the silence was deceptive. Every shadow, every corner seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the inevitable clash. Detective Lena Hartman tightened the strap on her flashlight and gripped the rusted pipe she had salvaged from the basement. She had scouted the layout, memorized the hidden passages, and set up her cameras. Every detail counted. Tonight, she would face Victor Crane, the man whose reign of terror had haunted Willow Creek for decades. The basement doors loomed ahead, a black maw swallowing the weak morning light. Lena approached cautiously, senses razor-sharp. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears, matching the rhythm of the dripping water somewhere deep below. Each step echoed off the stone walls, but she moved with deliberate silence. She reached the first chamber, a room she had previously barricaded. The cameras were in place, recording every inch, every potential movement. She activated the small red lights, their soft glow a tiny beacon in the oppressive darkness. And then she heard it. A faint shuffle, almost imperceptible, but enough to make her blood run cold. Victor had arrived. "Detective Hartman," his voice was low, taunting, echoing in the cavernous basement. "I wondered how long it would take you to come back." Lena tightened the grip on the pipe. "It ends tonight, Victor. No more games." A sudden movement in the shadows told her he was circling, analyzing, plotting. Victor had spent decades perfecting the layout, learning how to manipulate the darkness, how to control fear. Lena knew this would be no ordinary confrontation. It would be a mental and physical battle. Victor lunged first, a blur of motion trying to catch her off guard. Lena dodged, swinging the pipe. The metal connected with his shoulder, producing a sickening thud. Victor grunted but didn't fall. His eyes gleamed in the dim light, alive with a predator's thrill. "You're faster than I expected," he said, his grin cold. "But fear always slows you down." Lena pivoted, moving deeper into the hidden passages, leading him toward the camera she had strategically placed near a narrow corridor. Victor followed, silent, careful, as though the walls themselves obeyed him. She reached herself against the wall, listening, waiting for the perfect moment. As Victor reached the corridor, Lena triggered a motion sensor she had rigged to the camera. A flash of light illuminated the hallway, momentarily blinding him. She swung the pipe, striking him across the chest. He stumbled, surprised, not by the attack itself, but by her planning, her cunning. "You've been planning this for a long time," Victor hissed, regaining his balance. "Do you really think you can outsmart me?" "Yes," Lena said, her voice steady, "because I see what you've done. I know your patterns, and I'm not afraid." The chase continued, a tense ballet of shadows and whispers. Victor lunged and dodged, his knowledge of the basement giving him an advantage, but Lena had adapted, using traps she had set, loose floorboards, hanging chains, and the layout itself to corner him. Every step brought her closer to victory or disaster. Suddenly, they burst into the central chamber, where the remnants of Victor's decades of crimes lay scattered, the skeletal remains, the maps, the journals. Lena moved carefully, knowing one wrong step could cost her dearly. Victor advanced, but she noticed a pile of loose bricks near the far wall. With a swift motion, she kicked it, sending debris crashing down. Victor yelped, staggered, giving her the opening she needed. Lena swung the pipe with all her strength, hitting him squarely in the shoulder. Victor went down, but not fully. He rolled, grabbing a shard of metal from the floor and lunging at her. Lena sidestepped, using the pipe to knock the shard away. She pressed her advantage, striking again, finally forcing him to the floor, pinned against a broken concrete and debris. "Enough!" she shouted, flashing her badge as she reached for the handcuffs in her coat pocket. Victor's eyes flicked up at her, a mixture of rage and admiration. You could have been mine," he whispered, blood dripping from a cut above his brow. "But no one ever sees me coming." "You didn't account for me," Lena said, cuffing him, "and no one else will ever see you again." With Victor restrained, Lena used her flashlight to signal the local authorities she had called earlier. Backup arrived swiftly, their flashlights piercing the shadows of the basement. Lena guided them carefully, pointing out every hidden passage, every cache of evidence. The horrors she uncovered were staggering. Victims' personal effects, journals detailing decades of premeditation, and clues to cases long thought cold. Victor Crane was led away, silent now, his reign of terror finally ended. Lena stayed behind, surveying the basement once last time. The walls seemed to breathe in the aftermath of the confrontation, the shadows receding, but never fully leaving. She knew the motel had been a haven for unspeakable evil, and now that evil was captured, documented, and exposed. The local media arrived the next day, their cameras rolling as Lena recounted the details. The townspeople of Willow Creek were stunned. Decades of whispered rumors, unexplained disappearances, and lingering fears were finally made tangible. Families of victims were able to identify personal effects, some finding closure after years of uncertainty. Despite the resolution, Lena felt no triumph. The motel had left its mark on her psyche. She walked through the halls one last time, flashlight illuminating the peeling wallpaper and broken furniture. Every creak of the floorboards reminded her that evil can hide anywhere, often for years, waiting for the right moment. The motel was condemned, sealed off, and the entrances blocked. Authorities posted warning signs around the property, ensuring no one could enter. Yet as Lena drove away from Willow Creek, she glanced in the rearview mirror and shivered. In one of the boarded-up windows of the Sunset Motel, a faint flicker of light moved. Her instincts screamed that while Victor was gone, the motel's horrors had left a residue, something intangible, a shadow that might never fully dissipate. She whispered to herself, "Some places never forget, and neither do I." By the time she reached the highway, the morning sun had fully risen, casting a deceptive warmth over Willow Creek. To the casual observer, the town seemed peaceful, the motel just a dilapidated building left to crumble. But Lena knew better. Darkness could linger, even in daylight, and evil often had a way of waiting for those bold or foolish enough to enter. As she drove toward the next assignment, Lena resolved to carry the lessons of the Sunset Motel with her. The world was full of hidden horrors, and justice often required courage, patience, and a willingness to confront the unimaginable. The Sunset Motel stood behind her, silent once more, its secrets now partially revealed, its shadows slightly diminished, but far from gone. And somewhere in the recesses of its rotting walls, a faint, lingering presence waited, reminding the world that horror doesn't always end when the villain is caught.